Hello, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to the much awaited announcement of the Kodak Tri-X winners. And I am here with Andy Church from Kodak. Andy, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Thanks, Paul. Great to be back. Great to do another podcast and great to have another competition rolling. Yeah, all good from my side.
Yeah, we had, well, I think lots of people have been messaging us in the last, definitely in the last couple of weeks saying, when are you guys announcing this? And I've been saying, look, there were nearly 1,000 entries. Andy has been working hard on it ever since. um,
Yeah, I've not been out at all, believe it or not.
exactly, you've not been
Was
into
that
any.
the reason? I don't know.
Exactly, you've
Yeah,
literally not left your house. It's been like a lockdown.
absolutely. It's been very intense, but I've had plenty of practice of that. And I promise I have looked at every image more than once. So it should be a fair judge.
Exactly. So what we've decided to do is we're going to show quite a few images, more than we have done before. So we're going to show 25, Andy's favourite 25. Within that, rather than there being one winner, there's going to be 3 grand winners, and then 7 runner-up winners who are also going to receive some Kodak goodies. So 10 people are going to walk away from this video having won some Kodak stuff. So thank you very much, Andy, for both that contribution, but also the time that you spent looking at over 900 photos at least twice each. So yeah, we wanted to show a few more than we normally do. I mean, 25 sounds like a lot, but actually it's still less than 3% of everyone who entered. So thank you to everyone who did enter. We say this every time. The quality is incredible. Tri-X is a brilliant film, but what you guys have created with it has been really, really special. But with that in mind, as I say, we did want to share a few more. Andy, how easy was it to get from 900 and something down to 25?
Yeah, not easy at all, really. So, we do say this every time, but particularly this time, not just the quantity, but the quality was really up there. It was really very good. Some people put in multiple images, but there was a lot of entries, a lot of different people entered, and the quality, I'd say, was really good. So we really had to sort of be hard and eliminate some and just get the number down, and just getting it to close to 25 wasn't easy, and then picking the top 25 was tough, but then finding the winners was even tougher. Although, as I'm sure you'll see and agree at some point, there are some really good images, and the winners are very worthy winners.
Mm. And you do have an overall number one as well. There's 3 grand winners, but there is
Yeah,
and
yeah. So we've gone as far as the top three, and in fact the top 10 are in an order as well. So yeah, um, just to really be able to sort of line them up as a top 10, we've put them all in an order. And if you stop the clock and stop the music and move the chairs around, we might have changed the order again. But we are where we are, and this is it final. So yeah, we're happy. We're happy, really happy with the interest, the energy, the entries, and I think we've got some really good images to
Mhm.
on the winners board.
And we did say, the competition was Tri-X Factor. You had promised me you'd dress up as Simon Cowell, and that.
I could pull my trousers up a bit if you want. I've had my lips Botox.
Oh,
Does that
perfect.
count?
There we go. That definitely counts. Okay, well, before we dive into the pictures, and while I do have you pinned down on a Skype call, always like to check in on how Kodak is doing. Um, what are the big themes at the moment? Obviously, I think the supply chain has been an ongoing discussion for a while, and then how has COVID impacted things at the moment? How are things looking? How's demand looking around the world as COVID moves into its second year of existence? What's the feeling in Kodak world?
Yeah, so no surprise to anybody. I think this year's been a really unusual, tricky year. Lots of retail outlets around the world have closed. Um, but we're still seeing strong demand from the market in general. And why is that, you may ask? Well, you never really know. The suspicion is that lots of people have had more time at home and time to do hobbies and get more creative, and more people therefore have picked up film and trying to do more things with it, which has boosted demand. And I think that's particularly true of Europe, but also the rest of the world as well. Certainly in the UK, we've seen very strong order book, really, really strong. In terms of supply, it's really hard to keep up with supply. Market demand climbing is a great thing, but we've had to resize production, or EKC, who produced the film for us, have had to invest and resize production, and that's starting to yield an increase in volume for us, which is helping us in terms of supply. Even this year, we're still being affected by COVID. So the first January, February, even finishing production, they had issues with people being off work due to COVID, self-isolating. So they're trying to run reduced crews on shifts, and that inevitably hits the production volume, the yield from production. But that's, that we're over that hump now. I'm sure there's going to be more humps in the road this year. COVID hasn't gone away. We're in a good place, starting to get in a better place, but I think there's still a long way to go. But in terms of film and the film business, it looks rosy, looks good moving forward. Certainly there seems to be a keen interest in film, more so than I think there has been for some years now, maybe even somewhere around 10 years or something like that. So it's very good at the moment in terms of just the whole interest and demand, really.
No, that's brilliant. No, when you talk about the COVID knock-on, I mean, we've had all the couriers, Royal Mail, their toughest thing over winter was that, not necessarily people catching COVID, although obviously that also impacts, but as soon as you have a case in a local office, a sorting office, everything is just left, for a week while people go away, and as testing that helps. But no, those knock-on effects on production and things will be a while. But it's good, and the investments that we've been talking about for a couple of years now, that is still happening. It's just taking longer for us to see the benefit thanks to the pandemic.
Yeah, Rome wasn't built in a day, and some of the things the new things that need to be brought into to be put together really it does take a long time, but the work's being done. A lot of it's in place now, and it is going to help us going forward. I was just thinking while you were talking also, even just booking the things that you would never imagine being an issue, like container shipments. Just trying to book a container shipment is chronically difficult at the moment. There's a world shortage of containers. So there's just delays, increased costs, all sorts of things, but all problems that you probably work through day to day. And just when you think you've had every problem you could ever have, a new one will jump up in front of you.
Just when you've done nothing else, the Suez Canal gets blocked. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was always a good watch, and that did delay some shipments for me. So I had a few containers in that queue, but thankfully that got washed through in the end, didn't it? So yeah, but that's all part of the fun. It's all part of the job. So and we always get there in the end.
Yeah, brilliant. So for you, as you look across your empire, it's the next few months are a case of just continuing to build that capacity, getting the film to where the demand is, and looking forward, hopefully, to a brighter, more flexible future.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just trying to get as much efficiency in the supply chain as possible. So people place orders on distributors, you place them on me, and I in turn place them on the main warehouse, and we schedule the production to fit the orders that we have. And then as efficiently and as quickly as possible, we try and get it back out to our regional warehouse and out into the market. And of course, there's film orders coming in all around the world, so almost competition between regions to see who can get which film at which time. So it's my world is probably very similar to yours, just maybe with a few zeros behind the volume number. I don't
exactly,
know.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Well, exactly, and now that you sit here as a Brit, obviously UK must get the priority of all the regions each time, I'm sure.
I can't imagine what you mean. Yes.
Exactly. Well, you do live just down the road, reasonably speaking. So I can always pop round post-COVID. Okay then.
Yes. Yep.
That's wonderful to hear, and we look forward to all of that Colour Plus arriving. Promise I wouldn't mention it, though.
Yeah, no, I can't. No, yeah, enough said.
Exactly, yeah. Well, we've got loads of Golden Ultramax. I've seen that this morning.
Yeah. So so we have had to prioritise some films above others, and so Colour Plus it will come through, but Golden Ultra had a slight prioritization in terms of getting that to market for
Poor
sure.
little Colour Plus, the last one to be made. Brilliant. Okay then. Well, let's get stuck in. So, for those of you, well, a reminder, I think, for everyone, because it's been a couple of months, the Tri-X competition. So this was all about exactly Kodak Tri-X, the Tri-X Factor. We didn't really put any theme on it necessarily, did we? We said enjoy using the film, making the most of it. In a time that creatively in February during lockdown might be quite tough. But people's creativity and what they showed you can achieve with this emulsion is obviously fantastic. As a film, it is one of the most iconic, I think, from the last 50 odd years.
I think I was going to say, I think people are only limited by their imagination in terms of what subject matter. In fact, we even had a colour entry, didn't we? So
we did.
Who will remain nameless, but I'm not sure he was using Tri-X.
I don't know what gave it away.
Yeah, there's a subtle clue in there somewhere.
You say that, we did.
It was a nice attempt, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Writing Tri-X on the side in Photoshop. No, we did. Although I say that because I did have somebody on Instagram share one that was an Ilford HP5 in colour, and he'd done the old shoot 3 over the top and then print.
Filtered them. Yeah,
exactly. Print red, green, blue to get the colour. So it is possible, but no. Okay, then these are all going to be traditional monochrome Tri-X. So let's dive straight in. Okay, so first up we have Steve Medal with a solitary tree. I always love a solitary tree. So what stood out for you here?
So it is a solitary tree, but it's got a lot of it's a lot of character. The framing of the light around the tree is perfect. So you got a very dark sky, and the light behind the tree hugs the line of the tree. It's got a really nice contrast. It's strong contrast, but it's held a lot of detail. The grain of Tri-X is really strong, particularly in the sky. So you see it in more sort of neutral density areas, even though the density level is changing. There's a lot of neutrality in the sky, and it's just gives a really interesting look. And I think there might be a birdhouse or something on the tree at the top of the trunk. So not sure, but there's something going on there. There's a little bit of intrigue, maybe. But the composition is very, very good.
No, definitely, and you're right.
And it's created a striking image.
Yeah, because the first thing I notice is definitely the really strong contrast. But you're absolutely right. Look at the sky. You look at the grass. There's a load of detail and greys in there as well. I don't know whether it's me just being in a melancholic mood, but this is just such a February image as well for me. Like dark, lonely,
Yeah.
bare, lifeless tree by itself.
No leaves. Yeah. Frosty ground, probably. Who
exactly.
knows?
That's exactly how I remember this year so far. But no, a wonderful image, Steve. Thank you. And just to remind people, we're doing sort of the special mentions first, and then we'll do the winners and the grand winners. So, Steve, well done. Great special mention. Moving on to Ariel, and this is incredible. What's going on here, Andy?
Well, we're not sure. I'm not sure. I should say. So this looks like some, I don't know, I'm not sure, some South American witch doctor or who, I don't know. I don't want to do it an injustice, but it's, I'm wondering if the film's been pushed or something to create a grainy effect or something like that. But there's just a wealth of mystery and intrigue in this image, the way it's been put together. It shows loads of grain, loads of character. I really would love to know just how it was taken and how the film was handled to get this effect, because I'm really not sure, if I'm honest, but I love the output, and so it made the top 25.
Yeah, definitely. And you're right. It looks as though something's been done because it's particularly grainy, and then there's the sort of the glow around the highlights. So whether it's been pushed or whether it's been alternatively developed, or something creative's been done in the print, but no, it's a very, very striking, and a fascinating character. Ariel, we would love to know more about how you made the image, and then also who who the subject is, but a very, very interesting portrait. And it goes to show again what you can do with Tri-X. It has that natural grain, has the natural atmosphere, and this has been turned up to 11. Okay, image number 3.
Oh, I need Tinkerbell. Oh, well, fancy this, Chris Roden. So he's almost ever present in every competition that we've put together. But and I've got to say, I really like this image. Thank you, Chris, for sending it in, amongst some other ones that you sent in as well. And it's good to see you shooting some black and white film as well as the colour film. So, but this is Bodiam Castle. And obviously a very long exposure, so you can see that the stars have moved around in the sky. So it's just really nicely put together. The silhouette of the castle and the trees around the castle, and then the night sky, and possibly even a shooting star passing through as well. I think it's a lovely image of a really nice traditional castle close to Hastings in the south of England. So yeah, a really good entry.
No, it's fantastic. So for people who might not have seen some of these competitions before, Chris Rowden is notorious, not for entering, because lots of people enter each time, but he always turns up in Andy's top ones. We always joke that if Andy ever needs someone to do interior design or to choose artwork for him, Chris Rowden is the man. But yeah, no, it is fantastic. And in terms of shooting long exposure and photography at night, choosing a really strong landscape along a strong silhouette to sort of frame the movement around is always key. And this wonderfully, nearly symmetrical, very distinctive castle. So did you recognise the castle shape, Andy? You just looked at it and said, that's near Hastings.
No, there was a subtle clue, but I have been to Bodiam Castle before, and once the name was highlighted to me, I do recognise it for what it is. Although I saw it during the day, and you can't see the moat or the drawbridge, but it's a lovely visit and a lovely looking castle.
Brilliant. No, and this also shows a lot of skill from Chris, as you say, to get the exposure long enough to get the star blur, but without the whole image being washed out. To get the perfect shadow.
Yeah, to keep the camera perfectly still, even on a tripod, for that length of time. And I'm guessing to get the stars moving that distance is a good minute or two.
Probably
so a significant amount of time, I would say.
I would
so
guess
you're right, getting that exposure level correct is really good.
Yeah, and then you're right, the shooting star or maybe a satellite or something that comes across and cuts through on the angle pointing towards is a lovely one-off leading line. Fantastic. Okay, and another portrait, but slightly more recognisable than Ariel's, Redeem's photo.
Yeah, really nice portrait and great use of lighting. So the subject, the character, the girl, I guess, is not just hugging a tree, but highlighted by the little sort of chink of sunlight, the beam of sunlight which is falling down onto her, which pulls her right to the middle of the image and pulls her out into the image. So just really nicely composed, really, and great use of exposure in terms of getting the exposure level just right, and held really good detail around the whole image as well. So the background is obviously out of focus, but it's just nicely put together in terms of the right areas of the image being in focus, and that gives it a really natural framing.
Yeah, no, this is absolutely beautiful and shows what Tri-X can do then, rather than pushed, but with enough light and with the right exposure, because the detail and the texture throughout the image is incredible. And you're right, it's the highlighting with the lighting and the hat with the bright bands, and then enough of the face to see some expression is what really lifts this away. It's a really, really lovely photo. So thank you so much. Okay, Stephen. Stephen, I think, has a couple actually who made it into the top 25. So clearly he's on a roll with Tri-X.
Yeah, and so a really nice image, a long exposure, allowing the water to move around and get this sort of look of mystique. It's just great composure, really nice exposure, great use of Tri-X in terms of the character from the grain. Just a really nice image. And Stephen put together or entered a little crop of images, and they were all really good. And it was difficult to know which one to choose, to be honest. So this is one entry in the top 25, and no spoilers for
We might see one
just
or
if
two
there's
more.
another one.
Yeah. No, you're right, because you're right. The background is almost painter-like in its abstractness, isn't it? Because you get that, you sort of understand that it'll be clouds, sky, sea, beach, but all water all the way. But then that really juxtaposes with a very, very sharp sculpture, or
I'm guessing that's a very well-known piece of artwork.
yeah,
Someone cleverer than me will say, "I know where that is,"
yeah.
but that's not one I've seen before. But
That's
yeah,
not a castle
beautiful.
near Hastings. That's nothing you can just pick up on.
No.
Jasper.
Oh, okay. Yes. So very similar to the last portrait in the woods. Again, just a beam of light onto the face of the subject. The fact that she's not looking in the lens, she's looking down, just gives it all added interest. And so the background is very dark, but there's pockets of detail there. But the real focus is on the face of the subject, and it creates just a really nice look to the image.
Yeah. No, really, really gorgeous. And I think the temptation with this kind of subject would always be to almost crop quite strongly, maybe. But they've left enough space and enough background, even though it's not particularly brightly lit, just enough to give some interest, I think, which contrasts then really nicely with a very in focus, very sharp, very detailed, well lit portrait. So
yeah, I think that there's also lots of shadows on the face, and it gives it, just adds to the character really. So
yeah,
it's sometimes not seeing everything is better than seeing it all.
yeah, absolutely. Next one, Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean a really simple image, but it kind of it's a single two-dimensional image that just has a little story behind it, but it's an unknown story. We don't know it, and the fact that it's shot on Tri-X and it's all the grain in the image gives it a real old school sort of look and feel as well. So it's a young lad in a young child in a public environment. Just sort of looking away, but there's just something in it that just ticked the box and had a real strong appeal.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this looks exactly as you say. This looks like this is such a classic Tri-X type of photo for me, especially because I think I got to know Tri-X particularly well through things like Don McClane, other one, Don McCullin, and the photos there through the 70s and 80s. Sort of a mix. Obviously, he did quite a lot of wartime stuff, but then also street, and I know he does landscape more recently. But this just reminds me of that kind of like photojournalism. You think maybe this was a part of a newsworthy event, maybe, or the aftermath or something. But there's a story, and then the atmosphere of Tri-X. And again, it goes back to what you said on the previous photo. Not seeing everything. I think the fact that the young chap's looking away, standing by himself, whereas everyone else is in groups. You're right. There's just this sense that more is happening than what we've seen so far, and then the aggressive drop off in focus as well just adds to a very atmospheric image.
Yeah, and I think also the fact that there's someone in the group behind looking towards him as well, so that it's like there's some sort of something happening between him and that little group, or he's I don't know, slipping through the scene. Who knows? So it's the unknown element, and the as you say, the really strong nostalgic look that you get from Tri-X, or can get from Tri-X.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, number 8, Ray.
So yeah, another portrait, and again, just a really nice portrait. The lighting is side lit, so that there's areas that are well lit and areas that are in the shadows. If I'm honest, it looks like someone from Bananarama, but I know it's not. so So it's very, very old school in terms of the look of the model or the person in the image. And it's just a really nice image. And the grain just gives it more character as well, not just in the background, but in certain pockets around the whole image. Just really like it. I like the way it's lit, the way it's held the detail, the high level of contrast that's in there. It just looks really good.
Yeah, and it's such a strong side light that you can actually see the dark line right down the nose, the chin, the neck. It makes it really, really interesting. And the fact as well that in the eye you can catch the iris. Yeah, I think the lighting for me really makes this one. Clearly an interesting person, clearly a really good choice of outfit and everything for black and white, but then the lighting, the precision of it, I think makes it really powerful. I also really like the crop here, the fact that you've gone in close enough to cut off the top of the hair and feel quite personal and quite intimate as well. Yeah, this is a really gorgeous, probably studio for that level of precision, but a really, really gorgeous, well thought through portrait. So great.
Certainly
great
controlled lighting. Robert De Niro is still waiting.
And then another controlled lighting portrait. Actually, I think this is one of the ones that I put on Instagram as I saw them come through. We tried to get through quite a lot on Instagram, and this is one from Josh Price, and it got a lot of comments talking about this one. So what made you choose this one?
I think so. The last image was exceptional, but also you just can't beat a warm smile, and you get a warm glow back, and it's just a really nice image of someone smiling, looking into distance with a glint of a glint in the eye, a feeling of happiness. But then the image is just got it's got detail in it around the face, but it's going out of focus just behind the face as well. So that keeps the face actually, the main part of the image. And it's just, again, well lit. It's more front lit, which is more difficult to do. You get a bit more glare off the face. But I think the composition is very good. And just the general detail around, the subject is very good.
Yeah, I remember actually. I've just looked it up on Instagram, and yes, we'd said this a couple of months ago. And Josh, when he talked about why he loves this photo and Tri-X in particular, was he says that he thinks what works really well is the phenomenal sharpness and beautiful tones of Tri-X. You get crisp blacks and whites, and really good skin tone for a monochrome film. And also, my wife is so beautiful, he says. That's another reason.
Yeah, we'll agree with that.
Exactly.
Josh, you should be doing my job. That was really well summarised.
Yes, you can be in charge of writing the descriptions of Tri-X on the film box from now on.
What would Josh say about this one?
Exactly. Oof. And how about him?
Oh, what would Josh say about this one?
What would exactly another? That's 3 in a row. Fantastic portrait. So John took this photo. What do you like?
So yeah, we did have a selection of portraits that all came together and maybe lazily lined them up, but it was nice to show the different styles of portraiture that you can shoot. So this one is very different to the last one. It's very stark. So the contrast is really strong, and there's a distant look in the subject's eyes. It's also very boldly close to the subject as well, so it's really cropped, but the detail is really strong. The flesh tones are good. The overall contrast is just makes it a very deep image, and it's not sort of warm and pleasing like the last one, but it's just full of bags of interest and maybe emotion as well. Who knows?
Yeah, and also the choice of shooting down slightly on someone rather than sort of front on. It's also a great example of, when you're shooting portraits, having what works really well is having that wide aperture, but making sure you focus on the eye, because the eyes are absolutely perfect. But you look at like the drop off to the ear, even you can see how much out of focus that is. The skill to make sure that the sort of the plane of the face is perfectly in focus at the same time allows you to keep the detail in the beard. Obviously, make sure the eye's really caught, the wrinkles on the forehead. And he looks deep in thought.
Yeah, I think it's something. There's probably something in the body language, whether it's shot from above or just the head's turned down a little bit. It's sort of submissive, or it's sad, or you know, the way the head is just slightly forward, just gives that added emotion in the image.
And it's
Yeah,
such strong contrast again with the greys that are really beautiful on the skin. You sort of, it's one of those photos that again you can see small or big, and it just really holds your attention. Fantastic photo, John. Thank you. Okay, we move away from portraits to architecture.
yeah. So a really very basic scene. So some white sort of towers, I guess, with a spiral staircase. Um, One of my children passed by while I was doing some of the judging and asked me if that was a DNA spiral. I said, "Well, it is if you can walk up it, I guess." So but but yeah, it's a very sort of simple, abstract image. It shows the flexibility of Tri-X, so in sort of more an industrial abstract use or artistic use. The grain of the that's coming out in the steps and the darker parts of the image, but it's really held the detail in the lighter areas. So where you've got the tower, there's some really fine detail. So it's not completely washed out. It's still got some interest in it. So and there were a few that were similar to this in terms of not the same towers or steps, but similar abstract type images. And this one was one that just won out and looked really interesting.
Yeah, and also what Ben's done brilliantly here is to get that exposure right. I can't imagine a camera's auto meter will have dealt very well with this kind of image that is 95% very bright and then 5% dark. So the skill to get that right without the whole image just turning to sort of a bit grey and middling is quite impressive. And yeah, I think you're right. It's the abstraction of the shapes, the fact that the angles are so well done. You're right. All I can see now is a DNA helix. That's how good
Yeah.
Tri-X is. It can resolve down to sub-molecular level. Um, you just need a big enough lens. That's all you need.
You've been listening to your wife, have you?
Exactly. Um, all you need is a long lens to take photos of DNA with Tri-X. But it definitely has that brilliance of a minimalist photo that is still visually interesting, and the simplicity leads itself to more than just a sort of a nothing photo. That's really, really gorgeous. So well done, Ben. Very highly skilled and very impactful. This is another one that I remember doing very, very well on
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah.
So
I
Alex,
remember you asking about the sky and then finding out it was a ceiling.
yes, that was it. I said I'd love the
So
sky, and they were like, "Not the sky, but thanks."
yeah, so I think it's a TWA lounge in an American airport,
Yeah, I
but
think
I
it
can't
is.
remember which one.
Yeah.
Um, but again, your sort of initial question was spot on because the way that the image has come together, it does look like it's outside. It does look like there's some sort of atmosphere or grain in the skyline. But what's interesting is really just the shapes, the curves, the lighting, the level of detail, the contrast, and again the grain from Tri-X gives it that extra bit of character that I don't think you can get from any other film really. And even having a light. So there's an oval shaped light that's lighting the sort of the underpass, and have that not totally dominate the scene is really good. So very interesting the way that the railings spiral and curve. Just a really good sort of abstract image, really.
Mm.
Not abstract, but that sort of style.
No, I do know what you mean because I think particularly the bottom half almost looks like a painting or a drawing.
Mm.
A bit Salvador Dali, like the curving wall reminds me of the melting clock.
Yeah.
And all those shapes do almost look too good to be true. The composition
Yes.
and the interest and the curves being replicated then in the curve of the wall, in the opposite curve of the balcony. Yeah, so it's the I've just looked actually on Instagram, and Alex had said yes, it's the TWA Flight Center. So that isn't the sky, although it very much could be a beautiful cloud. It's a flight
Easily.
center,
Yeah.
but this I just find it such a striking and interesting image. I think really well captured. and Alex gives a lot of credit to the underlying building, saying it's very photo ready. I think that is fair, but also to capture its lines in this way is brilliant. I think
and what prompted Alex to take the photo as well? Was he out photographing a TWA lounge, or was he?
And on the way,
But
just
if something catch his eye, maybe we'll never know.
I'm not sure.
But thank you, Alex.
I think he did actually submit another one, also in the TWA Flight Centre. So maybe that's just the place to go. The advice that Alex gives for Tri-X, shooting with Tri-X, he says, no meter equals no problem. The latitude of this film is terrific. In brackets, read sloppiness you can get away with. Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything sloppy about the composition or exposure here.
I think you nailed it, Alex.
Exactly.
Well done.
But very, very, very humble. Very well said. Okay, and here we go. Stephen, welcome back.
Oh, okay. So I'm guessing this was a very rewarding day out for Stephen, but so very similar to the last one, but a different subject in the middle. So a long exposure, maybe not quite so long, but yeah, is that a lighthouse or similar, or some sort of warning, sort of smaller lighthouse? I don't know, but set really well. Yeah, it's the contrast, the skyline, everything is where the water meets the sea is just really, it's just nicely done, really.
Yeah, no, really, really gorgeous. And again, the skill to get this exposure where you've nearly washed out the sky. The sea is very, very light, but there's still detail in the shadow of the structure. You're right. I'm looking at it as well, being like, I don't live near the sea. This is the thing. We're in a city, lads, aren't we, Andy? That's the problem.
Yeah, completely.
We're way too urban for this. But whatever it is, to keep the shadow in it, to keep the detail in it, while bringing it away from the background with the exposure separation is a real skill. So fantastic work, Stephen.
And if someone actually lives there, well done.
Yes, exactly. Maybe that's Stephen's home. It looks amazing. And then Neve Evans.
Yeah, so an abstract. So I think it's a tree branch stroke trunk, but just captured lots of detail. It's probably what my knees feel like, if I'm honest. But it's a really simple subject. Obviously close up, but just got bags of interest in it. So it's well composed. It's sharp in the middle, and just really nicely put together. So it's held the detail. It's got the graininess around the edge in the neutral areas, which is what we know that you can get with Tri-X. And it's just an interesting abstract type image.
Yeah, this is. I mean, when I saw this, the first thing I wanted to do was almost if I could take the negative into the darkroom and run some prints, I think that'd be brilliant, because I think the detail is really good. The shapes, you're right, are abstract, but not to the point of being meaningless. It's a really interesting. There's a really interesting scale as well between the light and the dark, and I just love to just print to really get those swirls really highly detailed, really, really gorgeous. I think that'd be a very fun few hours. So no, really lovely work, Neve. Thank you so much. Okay, I think this is the last of the special mentions.
Yeah.
This was called Paris. I'm not sure why.
Definitely Paris. Definitely the Eiffel Tower. Couldn't imagine why.
Yeah.
But really good composition. Sorry. In terms of putting three monuments in a line, and having it just crystal clear. It's not heavy on contrast, but because there's just a strong surrounding light source. But it's just a good image, really. Just really well put together.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think and this as well. This photo just screams Tri-X to me. There's something about it that just looks slightly old-fashioned. Something in the character of the greys. And then holding all the detail all the way through. It's a lovely image. And you're right, the composition's very strong. Not only what's included, but also he probably had to work quite hard to exclude lots of other things from the photo to make it this clear. So really well done. Okay.
Yeah, I think just it's having the detail on the frame as well from the camera, and so shot at f16, which is why it's kept the detail all the way from close to far. So I think that's yeah, it must have been a slightly longer exposure as well with a narrow lens aperture.
Brilliant. There we go. So that's the warm up. There were the 15 special mentions. All absolutely fantastic photo. Really good variety in both style, subject matter. There's a mix of 35mm, 120 in there, and they are only the special mentions. So let's keep moving.
Yeah, we whizzed through those, didn't we?
Well, we did, but we're also 40 minutes in, so I'm conscious.
Sorry, everybody.
But this is what we wanted to do. Like the amount of time that you guys have spent to submit, we want to reflect back and share as much as we can, and also the thoughts.
Yeah.
So from this point on, then, Andy, we've got 10 that you have, as you say, you've put them in order. The countdown to the ultimate. But everyone from this point is going to be getting some Kodak goodies from yourself. So if you feature in the next segment, then you will be getting an email follow-up asking for some details. And here we go. Right then.
Top 10. So
let's start here.
Chris Lockyer, who has been a previous winner, I've recently noticed. But yeah, how much fun can a dog have? So it's how much fun can a dog have in snow? It's just a really nice image. It's good to find a really good shot with an animal in it, in this case a dog, but just the pocket of the contrast around the dog. So the fact that the very some elements of it are sharp, but some are quite soft, which is the fur, and then being covered in the snow. So it's the mix of lightness and darkness, the density range in there, and then the snow scene going away, and a little bit of grain in there, giving the character as well. So a very simple image, but just pleasing, really.
Yeah, I think you can really see the character of the grain in the fur on his front, and then also the snow that gives it the interest. And also, again, I'll say that the skill to make an image that is this much white snow, to expose it properly so it doesn't just become a grey mess is not as easy as it might sound. So to get that much detail throughout is very impressive. And yes, the expression of the dog looks maybe a bit knackered after a fun run around. But it's a really, really lovely photo. So congratulations, Chris. Okay, Rosalind, and another one that did very well on social media.
Okay, good. And so yeah, this one won out in the War of the Portraits. So I think why did it win out? So I think a really good blend of lighting and detail. Yeah, just a very nice image, really. So the grain looks really good. It really helps the image, but it's kept the detail. There's lots of lovely contrast. The flesh tone has got quite a lot of light in it, but that kind of just gives more character and shows more of the profile of the face. Again, it's slightly front to the side lit, which again really helps. Just a pleasing image.
Yeah, and it's quite dynamic as well. I feel like she's looking over her shoulder. Gives it a little bit more than a sort of a pure straight on, and the lighting's really, 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 again, just precise. The catch lights in the eyes. I love the toning across the face, even though there's obviously different lights. You're not losing any of the detail there, either highlights or shadows. And then again, you can see that gorgeous Tri-X grain in the background to just give it a bit of atmosphere. Wonderful. Okay, Stephen.
Jeez, how did that happen? So,
well, congratulations,
out Stephen's entries, I think to 4 now. So
this is the thing. But as you say, like on another day or with another judge, you could argue any of those 3 for Stephen. So no, I'm not surprised.
Change the order, yeah. But and we've had a similar entry to this in previous ones with a waterfall and a long exposure and the sort of the mystical sort of look and feel that you get that makes it almost look like it's come from a fairy tale book. It's just really nice the way the water's bouncing down on the rocks. So it's not a really tall waterfall, but it's multi-layered and it's waving down, and then the whole waterfall is nicely the composition of it within the surrounding area where you've got really good detail on the rocks in front of the waterfall and then around it as well. So overall, it makes a striking mystical image.
Yeah. And I love the rocks, and as you say, the rocks in the foreground to give it some real depth. The bounce halfway down, I really like the bounce of the water you can see. And I know as well, I remember a conversation on, I think it was Facebook, a few months ago, where there was a photographer whinging about how waterfall long exposures is cliche. But I think what I'd say here is the skill to capture at this level with this detail is very tricky, and the composition and the lighting here, I think, is what elevates this beyond that. Anyway, this is a very lovely photo with lots of very lovely shapes. So congratulations, Stephen. Well deserved to be amongst the winners for your photos. Ronnie Brandon.
Yes. What an interesting image.
Yes.
Yeah. So he called it Neverland. And you can kind of see, well, you can see why, can't you? So really interesting image. A double exposure image. I don't know, but it looks like it was taken at Kew Gardens. It's that big greenhouse. But definitely a double exposure, and there's some little giveaway clues that confirm that. And then with a telephoto lens as well, so it's brought the image into a circle. But it really really well done. So getting the exposure right, getting the composition right, so the statue's just in the right part of the foreground. Really clever and a really nice image.
Okay, so are you ready? I'm afraid incorrect.
Ah, geez.
So, yep. Neverland shot in Sefton Park in Liverpool on the last day of the year approaching dusk in the early days of my film experiments. It's his first ever roll of Tri-X in a Lomo fisheye number 2.
Ah, that's how it was done, which is a type of,
Yeah, and it's a
lens,
double exposure. So I shot the magnificent old Victorian palm house and then threw off a double exposure of the adjacent Peter Pan statue.
Perfect.
The resultant image was wholly unexpected, but it made me fall in love with the Tri-X. The scene rendered like a charcoal sketch and imbued with nostalgia for those lost childhood days spent playing there. Again, you are putting us to shame with your eloquence.
No, it is a fairy tale-esque scene, isn't it? And it's an archetypal greenhouse of its time. So I think that it's a cousin site.
You can have a half point. You can have half point.
I should get out more.
But this is really interesting, because when I first saw this, it looked like the back was a projection, and you can see the blurring of the distortion around the edge that made me think again it was a sort of a projection onto a moon object or from a round projector with someone in front. But actually this is double exposure, and this is incredibly striking. I mean, it sounds as though the composition was quite accidental, in that this wasn't carefully measured and metered double exposure, but as an image it absolutely works. So absolutely fantastic. And yes, you can see the help that Tri-X gives the background. You're right, quite a charcoal drawing-esque. Really interesting photo, Ronnie. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Daniel Scott.
Yeah, a really simple image in many ways. So it's basically having fun in a river, in the woods, but the subjects are, it's composition again, so composition and lighting. So you've got the sunlight coming through the trees, lighting them from above. Both of them have found something interesting in the water, and it invokes memories of childhood and doing exactly that, playing around at the edge of a river, in any location. Looks like a great day out, doesn't it?
Yes. No, definitely. Yeah, the lost childhood days once more. Yep, and the lighting again, is that shaft of sunlight coming in and hitting the hair perfectly, but either way, yeah, engrossed in whatever activity they're doing. A very nostalgic, reminiscent photo. Gorgeous atmosphere, really well taken. So thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, it's a good balance of light and shadows. Just yeah, good, well done, well put together.
Rosie McGowan, and a very different photo.
Yeah, I kind of love the playfulness of this image. It's a toy scene. The main subject and the area just around him is in focus, and that draws the eye to the person at the entrance of a funfair ride of some sort. And then there's a lot of unsaid. So he's looking into the fairground ride or whatever it is. Who knows? What's he looking for? It just kind of invokes the thought process and just think deeper about the whole image. But having that sort of foreground in focus and very quickly going out of focus, seeing the grain of Tri-X come in where the detail falls away, it's just really nicely, the composition's good, and the whole way it's put together really. So from probably just a small toy that was photographed, but really well done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Rosie's description as well. She calls it the photo blurry memory, um, and yeah, again, this is I suppose similar to the Peter Pan one. She talks about getting the focus perfect on the young boy and watching the ride, coupled with the incredibly shallow depth of field, really reminded me of a blurry memory of childhood. So much was going on around you that it failed to sink in, but you remember enough to recall the joy of the memory, even if that joy was fleeting, and as time passes so quickly when you're having fun.
Poetry.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And again, this to me, the texture, the age of the sign above, it works really well with Tri-X, I think. As a choice of emulsion and as a way to bring out that character. But that is a very evocative image, and Rosie's words only add to that. I don't have anything else to add. I think that's absolutely stunning.
Mm. Yeah, and the presence of mind to sort of bring a toy to life in that way, shooting it in short depth of field.
You can see
Yeah,
it on
magical.
the gravel of the floor. Like the depth of field is centimeters, if not millimeters.
Mm, mm.
It's such a sharp plane, and to be able to isolate that character, um, again, is very skillful, especially on a film camera where you don't have the option of just shooting lots as you move and hoping. It is really very skillful. So well done, Rosie.
Yeah, well done.
Michael.
Okay, so something different. A snow scene, but bags of depth to the scene. So there's almost a sort of an angriness to the sky. The mountain is got shadow areas and hotspot areas, and then there's like a long valley, and then ripples of snow down the mountain. Again, bringing the grain or using the grain of Tri-X to give more character to the image. Yes, it just comes together as a really effective image. There's so much contrast just in the weather, in the scene as well. There's the bright sunshine and the shadows and the clouds, and it just is a really nice, pleasing image. It would look great on a wall anywhere.
Yeah, and this is another one where my first reaction is almost wanting to get the negative into a darkroom and play around with some prints, because I think you can have a lot of fun. The drama of the weather and the clouds, the dappled shadows across. There's so much detail and so much variation across the grayscale here that you could really have a play, and you could crop bits, you could double expose bits. It's just a really, really gorgeous photo. And you're right, I'd love to see it on a wall. I don't know whether it's my small screen. I'd also love to see the landscape version of the same scene, because it's like I can almost feel the vastness of the landscape either side, and it's quite a brave choice, and I think to show as a horizontal sliver, but it's very powerful for that, and avoids maybe the cliche of a wide mountain landscape by zooming in on this sort of cross section. But I think it's really, really stunning.
Okay, you got your drum ready.
Okay, hang on a minute. First, we'll do a round of applause for the winners so far.
Well done, everyone. Well done.
Okay, so before we move on to then the 3 grand winners, so again, huge congratulations to those 7 winners. We will be in touch shortly, and there's been a great variety there, Andy. You've picked some portraits, some family sort of moments, some double exposures, the landscape. It's that in itself was a great cross section. Did you deliberately set out to sort of do categories, or did you just find that the variety was incredible across the?
Perhaps a bit of both. It's kind of nice to introduce the variety, but you can't do that if the variety's not there in good quality, and it was. So it was very easy to do, very easy to get a whole sort of range of different styles and to be able to highlight the different ways that different, even just with the portraits, take in sort of warm ones or slightly melancholic, or very different styles. So yeah, it was a hard choice. There's loads of images that we had to leave out that were equally as good, or very close to it being as good. So just well done everybody with your entrance, really. But yeah, it was fun to judge, really, and yeah, a whole range of lots of different styles and things, and loads of images by Stephen Mayer Rasco as well. So well done, Stephen.
Exactly. We'll have a separate Stephen competition where we'll choose
whole subcategory.
The best ones, because the quality, you're right, was exceptional. It's interesting as well, because I think where we've done this in the past, we always like to leave things open creatively. But, Low Light Magic last year and P3200 definitely pushed people towards indoor and portraits at night and all those kind of things. Whereas the choices of what people are shooting here is, from studio to mountains and everything in between. It's I suppose it also goes to show the flexibility of Tri-X, that it's not a portrait film or a landscape or a low light. It's 400 speed. It's has the ability to render skin tones well, and therefore you can take it anywhere.
Yeah, I think definitely, as it's been said, it's very forgiving, flexible film with really good latitude. So that 400 speed really puts it right in the middle and gives you a really good bandwidth.
Okay, then. So the top 3. So were you looking for anything in particular from the top 3, or was it a case of when you got everything together, you were like, right, these are the 3 standouts for me?
So I don't think you ever really look for something in particular. It's kind of what you find, and what you find is what gives you just looks the best, gives you the best emotion, gives you everything in that way. So yeah, it's certainly, you don't look for anything particular. You're never sure what you're going to get, but it always appears in front of you at some point. You think, that's one of the good ones.
That's it. Yeah. Okay. Well, we will tease no longer. Let's go into it. So, in 3rd place for Kodak Tri-X 2021, we have Stephen.
Did you not know?
Oh man!
I'm surprised. I had 4 in the top 25. I knew there was one in the top 3. So well done, Stephen.
Yes. Absolutely fantastic. So okay, let's
run off and left me.
The subcategory of Stephen photos. So what made this one your favourite of his? What elevated this to top 3 status?
So okay, so this is really, we've said about good composition. This is very good composition. So also it's taking an image in an area where you're probably over seawater and probably on a not very good surface, or not very easy to stand on surface, but it's taken at a low angle. It's a long exposure, which gives it the mystic look again. But the rows of sea defenses, I think there's 5 rows of sea defenses, creating a line for the eye to take it out to what is just a small sort of warning, not sure what you call that, a buoy. It's not a buoy, is it? Post at the end. And then where the sky meets the sea is really nicely positioned in the image. So whilst the sea is sort of creamy and sort of slightly mystical, it's the density of the sky is just another grade of white. But the whole, just the way it's put together, the fact that it's held the detail, It's good use of the grain again. It's just a really nice image.
Yeah. And no, I totally agree. I also love the idea that that's sort of a traffic sign at the end, as though you could, as though you could drive down here. It's like no
It's
left
probably to do
turn.
with the boats, Paul. Hello, or not.
Oh, see, it's like urban lifestyle letting us down again. No, I mean this is. I
Yeah.
don't have much to add. This is really stunning, and the exposure length to nail that. The detail in the water, you can still see some movement. It's dynamic, really beautifully detailed, and then yeah, the sweeping line leading to that stop sign. It's really, really stunning. So huge congratulations, Stephen, once more. I mean, the main question for me now is, do you think Chris Rowden's going to get jealous of Stephen?
Well, very likely, but he shouldn't be.
You're hoping to, it's like a selection issue where you're hoping to push Chris to the next level by favouring another.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think he's the master of the long exposure, certainly for this competition.
Yes, that is
So,
absolutely true. Yes, if anyone is after a long exposure at the seaside, then we all know who we are phoning. Okay, and then number 2, Gavin Vincent.
let me remind myself. I've got it on the screen. Oh, yes, of course. So, yeah, do I start with my jokey line? Yes, okay. So this reminded me of going on a bear hunt. This is the cave where the bear lives. So, but putting that to one side, composition is just really good. So the outlet of the cave is really well. It really frames the image. And it's a multi-layered scene. So you've got right at the foregrounds, you've got really good detail. You've got rocks that are wet. It's really held that detail. There's really bright spots and real dark spots. So there's lots of contrast. The whole image is just full of contrast as well. And then you go through the walls of the cave with the reflection of the water, again building that frame, and then the wall of water, which gives a natural blur to everything behind it, and then the sort of slightly meandering sort of water through the rocks down onto the beach where you've got passers-by and the sea. It's just layer after layer, and it's just really well composed. The exposure level is really good. It's held the detail. Lovely bits of pockets of grain in there as well. Just really good. Really liked it.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. The layers and that curtain of water, I think, as well, for me, is such an interesting thing to see. And yet, despite that would clearly obstruct, but you've still got that pair of people perfectly positioned. I don't know how long Gavin had to wait for 2 people to be in the exact spot, but it's
Yeah, you
really
can't shout out from the cave, can you? Just stop there for a minute.
left
Stop
a
there.
bit. But yeah, you're right. And again, the exposure to capture this depth and is very well judged. I really love it. I agree. The shapes as well in the floor. It could almost be like a valley scene, but then the people give it the context. Really, really lovely. So congratulations, Gavin. And then the ultimate winner. Let's say, what do I have? I'm quite limited on my sound effects, as you might have known by now. Here we go. Party noise. There we go.
Short and almost sweet.
The ultimate winner, Robert Lewandowski. And this one I remember, yes, again, it was on Instagram. It had a lot of attention. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I missed that one on Instagram.
Oh, it's because I thought it was a double exposure.
Yeah, that was my first thought as well. Then I realised how Robert did it. So I'm guessing this is not the Robert Lewandowski who plays for Poland as a footballer. So maybe doing keepy uppies. Who knows?
Maybe.
But I'm guessing this isn't the very same person. No matter. Great image, Robert, both in terms of composition and the presentation of the image. So I haven't seen any Instagram discussion on this, but this is my take on how it was done. So I think Robert took the image by pointing the camera into a puddle on a zebra crossing, and the background is the reflection from these puddle,
Absolutely
and
right.
that's what gives it that sort of. It almost looks like the pedestrians crossing the zebra crossing, which is made of glass, and it's almost shot from underneath, looking up at them as they pass by. It's just put together really well. The real giveaway is if you turn the image upside down, you can see it's a puddle. There's no debate at all. And that's what I mean by the presentation. Having now whether the camera's been turned or the frame's been put upside down, but the way it's shown just gives so much more depth to the image. And I just like the fact that it's got the street lamp in it and the spire, which just builds on the character really. And had were they just passers by? Were they someone who was walking across the zebra crossing for Robert, or who knows? But it's the whole thing comes together really well, and it's not a double exposure.
You're absolutely right. So you spotted it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an upside down reflection of a wet road. But it's really striking, and I think that's exactly it. It feels like you are under the road looking up, which gives it an incredible depth. I think you can see the cracks in the paint as well. The texture of the whole thing is just absolutely sublime. And then you've got the leading lines as well of the traffic pointing towards the cathedral or the church, and then these three really strong silhouetted structures. It just works so well as an image at any scale. Really, really powerful, really, really interesting creatively and from a subject matter. You can see that the lady is sort of gesturing, having a conversation. There's so much going on here. I think it's just fascinating. I could look at it for hours.
Yeah, I think just the fact that the puddle is obviously wet and it gives that sort of watery look to the whole image, and and the contrast in the image as well. The real whites from the zebra crossing, a lovely bit, loads of areas of mid scale, but then lots of high density contrasty elements as well. It really builds the depth of the image for me.
Yeah.
And like you say, loads going on. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well, I will do some proper applause. There we go. So congratulations, Robert. Congratulations to the grand winners, the winners, the special mentions, and everyone else who has entered. Thank you so much, because honestly, the quality and quantity were out of this world. And Andy and I were a little bit worried that doing the competition in February, in the middle of a very strict lockdown, in the middle of the deepest, darkest winter, might quite naturally be quite down on everyone's creative juices at the moment. But you proved us absolutely wrong, which is wonderful, because that was a true inspiration to sit through. Andy, thank you so much for your time and your expertise.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
I think I gave you no information with all of those, so those images were picked based purely on their aesthetic quality, and I think you came out with some absolutely fantastic ones and some really interesting ones to talk through as well. I hope that everyone watching has enjoyed looking through them, feel a little bit inspired. I'm very sorry if you're disappointed that your image didn't quite make it, but as you'll have seen, the quality was really, really special, and if we had the time, we would have happily gone through every single one. And we, in particular, did enjoy seeing them all come in.
Completely. And thank you for all the entries. It was almost daunting at first sight, but ended up being really rewarding. Just looking for all those good images, and these, the highlights. But there were so many other good ones as well that we just couldn't mention them all, unfortunately.
Yeah, I liked it. Was it 2 weeks ago? I got a notification of a new shared folder, and I was like, "Oh, Andy, is this the winners?" He was like, "Oh no, this is like the medium list, not even the short list yet. I'm just trying to find a way of managing it." But I think you've done a fantastic job. So, so for the winners and the grand winners, we'll be in contact now with your addresses. Andy will be.
I will be sending an email to each of you. Not necessarily today or tomorrow, but hopefully in the very near future. So bear with me. There's a lot to be done on different levels, but I will get out to you very soon as possible.
Brilliant. Well, look forward to those. If you haven't heard from either of us, then ping me on Instagram or get in touch within the next week or so, but that will happen. Then that's it for now. We will leave you to say thank you. We will, I'm sure, be cooking up some plans for later in the year. We might hold a separate Stephen versus Chris runoff to see who gets to decorate Andy's office next. I disappeared at one point halfway through when we were talking, because I'm actually in a slightly different office and we're sort of halfway through expanding. And one of the winners from the last competition had sent us a print in a frame. that is going to go on the wall. I mean, there's boxes everywhere, so we do love seeing them. So any of those are more than print worthy. So huge congratulations, Andy. Anything final to say, or do you think you've?
No, I think we've covered everything. Just to say, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for all your entries. Thank you, Paul, for putting it together. The Tri-X Factor really came good. So yeah, a real pleasure to do.
And it's still my favourite competition logo that we've done so far, and haven't been sued by X.
Yeah, so far.
So far, that's true.
I was joking about the Botox, by the way. I'm gonna have Simon Cowell chasing me down.
It's too late. It's all over Twitter. It's all over Twitter. Breaking news. All right then. Well, thanks so much, everyone. We'll finish it there. See you next time.
See you again. Cheers. Bye now.